All right, what's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast weekly real estate tip, where every single week I come to you sharing tips, tactics, and strategies that I've learned on my 20 plus year long real estate journey that have allowed me to become one of the top realtors and team leaders on the planet, with selling well over 7,000 homes here in the Phoenix metro area, and sharing this information with you so then that you can take this information, implement, execute inside your real estate business, and go out there and hopefully create that business and life that you truly know that you want and deserve. All right, so today I'm here to talk to you about how to effectively, or how to get buyer broker agreement signed effectively inside your real estate business with these new NAR rules. Now, for some of you, yesterday, or at least yesterday as of the day of me recording, I'm recording this on August 18th. So August 17th was that first official date, for the vast majority of realtors throughout the United States that has to abide by these new rules. Now, if you're in a state like me here in the state of Arizona, we had to implement this August 1st. Now, some states, I believe like Indiana, and I could be wrong on this, and I apologize. You can fact check me for those of you watching this in Indiana. But I believe for, like Indiana, I think was like, I don't know, July 1st, maybe. But regardless, like now it's like we are on, man. New rules of engagement, new ways that we got to go out there and operate. And one of the ways that we have to operate is now it is mandatory that you have to have a signed buyer broker agreement in place before you can open up a door, go out there and show a single property to a buyer. And on that buyer broker agreement, as all of you know, not only does it have to be in place, it's got to be signed, but our commission, like what your fee is a buyer agent representation, or a representative, has to be disclosed, agreed upon, on the dotted line, inside there, boom, signed upon, again, before we can go out there and open up a single door. Now, I'm going to walk you through 4 different steps to getting buyers to sign buyer broker agreements. Now, I'm going to walk you through, because this is just like everything I cover here on this podcast. I don't cover anything from a place of theory. These are, proven things that we're doing now, within my own real estate business. So I'm speaking to, shit that I'm doing right now today that me and my agents are doing, and doing at a high level that we're having success with. So I'm not coming from of, oh, well, guys, like if I was in your shoes, here's what I would do. Maybe I'm a, quote unquote guru on YouTube that did this 20 years ago, that's telling, well, if I was still in the business today, and look, probably a lot of these people have never even done a buyer broker agreement in their freaking life, right? Like, no, I'm speaking of, I'm you. I'm like, right? I'm one of you, in the trenches every single day, out there moving a lot of real estate. I'm going to walk you through, the 4 things that have and are working really well for me and my agents on my own team here in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, when I say have and are, okay, it's because I have been very strict about making sure that we do buyer broker agreements, when I say we as a team, for about the last 17 years. So this is kind of nothing new for me. Now, how we explain it is a little bit different, because the buyer broker agreements have changed, at least for here in the state of Arizona, kind of the old way versus the new way, where the old way was kind of like, okay, like it was just, pretty much implied that the seller was going to, pay us from the co-broke. Like you guys all know the old way, right? The new way, all that's, totally changed, right? So, but everything's like, we're not having any more resistance now. We're actually finding it easier in the new way. I know I created a podcast last week for you guys that was just, okay, over a week into this, how's it going? And we've been kind of surprised, man. Like not only with that we've experienced like zero resistance, both with getting listing agreement signed and buyer broker agreement signed on this. But we're actually finding this new way a lot easier. So I'm actually really excited about these changes, not for the consumer, because I'll be very upfront. I do not believe that these changes are in the consumer's best interest. Why I'm excited about them is like, look, it's been easier for us to position ourselves, easier for us to go out there and explain our value, easier for, us to go out there and go out there and charge what we believe that we are worth, different things. So it's making it easier for us is like the realtor, right? Again, I'm not saying that I like these, rules or laws for, because I don't think that it's in the consumer's best interest, but I could be wrong on that. I've been wrong on a lot of shit. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the end all know all, right? But anyway, enough about all that crap. Let's jump on in here. So there's a lot of resistance from not a lot of resistance, a lot of fear, and a lot of it, not fear, but a lot of, I don't even know how to put this, but you know, concerns, a lot of problems, I guess I should say, that a lot of our industry, maybe you're one of you watching this is having these problems, because my theory on this is the vast majority of our industry never did buyer broker agreements. I would tell, I get other agents call me, all the time asking for, like just pick my brain. And then I'd say things like, oh, well, when you're getting ready to do the buyer broker agreement, common thing I hear is, oh, that's not normal. That's not common in our area. We don't use those. That's not common in my area. And I could tell her, was telling everybody, like, it's not common in any area. And I know there's some states out there that always mandated them, but for the vast majority of markets out there, vast majority of states, vast majority of market, cities, boards, markets, this hasn't been normal practice. Now it's becoming mandatory. So a lot of people are having issues with this. So let's jump on to these 4 steps. So step number 1 is, look, you got to dial in your buyer consultation and take it every bit as serious as your listing presentation. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, you've been hearing me preach this to you for, I don't know, the 10 years I've been having the podcast. But then also, once these new NAR, shit started rolling out, I started telling you guys this, very heavily, but you might be watching this for the first time, or listening to this for the first time. Maybe you haven't heard any of my other podcasts, so I'm just going to pretend as if that's the case. So you want to treat your buyer consultation every bit as strict and dialed in as you have your listing presentation. Very common in our industry for most agents. Like if I'm talking to agents, usually like 8 out of 10 have a pretty good, listing presentation in place. That's, dedicated process that they've role played, that they've, but then usually the buyer presentation, they just wing it, right? No, we can't be winging anything, right? Like making sure that you got a dialed in world-class buyer consultation and looking at that just like your listing presentation, right? So what should a great buyer consultation have in place? How do you know if your buyer consultation is world-class? Okay, number 1, you should be converting 85% or more of those that you present to into signed committed clients. Right? That's how you know if you got, and when I say it, I mean that's at a minimum to be world class. Hopefully it's above that 90% mark. But that's where, okay, like results will show us if you have a world class buyer consultation or a world class listing presentation. So now you know what the percentage is. So okay, 8.5 out of 10 buyer consultations that you perform, you should be walking out of there with a signed buyer broker agreement in hand. If you haven't, okay, your presentation needs work. Now, your presentation might be okay. It just might be your way of presenting the present. Like, you got the physical presentation itself. Then you have the way that we present it, which is what really matters. I get so many people that are like, oh, dude, I want this pretty, presentation on Canva with all this pretty graphics. And, look, if you want that, not saying it won't hurt, not saying that it's, look, if you want that, cool, go out there, do it. I'm telling you right now, like that doesn't matter. Nobody cares about that. This can just be, like you don't even have to have documents. It doesn't need to be a presentation as far as like a fancy slide deck. What I'm talking about presenting is, how well can you present the information, right? Then from there, there's 4 overall parts to a great presentation. Now, this is going to hold true, whether it's a buyer consultation, listing presentation, recruiting presentation. I don't care what the presentation is. If we're looking at a sales presentation and on the consultation, what are we trying to sell? Us. We're trying to sell our services. We're not trying to sell the real estate yet, right? What we're trying to sell them is that we are the best guide to get them from their current living situation and living situation that they want to get to. That's what we are selling in this industry. People already sold in the fact they want to buy and sell homes. Like, I'm not going to go talk anybody into buying a home. They're either going to love it, it's going to meet their criteria, or it's not. What I'm selling them on is that, hey, I am the best guide, the best real estate representative to help you accomplish your real estate goals. That's what I'm selling them on. So that's what this presentation should go out there and do. And there's 4 overall elements to this. Number 1, it should inform and educate. Should inform and educate them. Should inform and educate us. And what I mean by informing and educating us, how can you possibly go out there and help a client accomplish their goals if you don't have extreme clarity on what they want, why they want it, why it's important to them? You can't, right? And so the one thing that so many miss in this industry is that, they think that the consultation, like, and now it's kind of, like we got to ask for them, right? Because the buyer broker agreements, required now, mandated by law. But okay, before that, when it was a requirement, it wasn't uncommon for me to have one of my agents in my real estate company out here in Phoenix, Arizona, my real estate team, that would sit there and have difficulty asking for the appointment. And I would tell them, I'm like, look, you're having difficulty asking because you think it's all about you. Like you think it benefits you, but you're not thinking of the benefit it is for the consumer. So get you out of this. This isn't about you. This is about the consumer. Like it's in the consumer's best interest for us to set up this meeting before we start this process so they can truly have all the information that they need to make their best informed decision for themselves and their families. So when I'm setting buyer consultations or listing presentations, you guys, like I do not, like this might sound weird because of course I care. Like, of course I want to convert the business. I want to be their agent. I want to go out there and represent them. I want to go out there and help them accomplish their goals. But that's not what I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about any of that. Like, I don't care if I get the business or not. Like I want them to do what is in their best interest for themselves. And I let them know that when I'm setting an appointment on the phone, or however, whether it's at open house or over the phone during that conversation, I'm letting them know that, hey, the sole purpose, and we're going to speak specifically to a buyer consultation here. Hey, the sole purpose of this meeting is to provide you with all the information that you need to make your best informed decision for yourself and for your family, regardless of what that decision is. Look, at the end of this meeting, hey, you might decide that homeownership is not for you. Not now, not never. You just may decide that homeownership isn't for you at all. And if that's your decision, that is okay. Hey, you may even decide that homeownership is for you. Just now isn't the right time, and that's okay too. Hey, you may even decide that homeownership is for you. Now is the time, but maybe you don't feel comfortable with moving forward with me as your real estate agent. That's okay too. Like I said, the sole purpose of this meeting is to provide you with all the information that you need to make your best decision for yourself and for your family. Does that sound fair? Right? So with that, like I'm doing this for them. Yeah, there's a positive for me because like, look, if I do my job and I articulate my value and inform and educate in the right way, then boom, okay, like the probability is very, very high. I'm going to get their business, through that, but I'm never going to manipulate anybody. I'm never going to go out there and, like you always got to put clients before commissions, customers before commissions. This is about the customer, right? The more that you obsess over the customer experience and doing what's right by people and people inside your community, the more I promise you, the more money you're going to make, the more commissions that you're going to have. Like, don't make this about you and your bank account. Make this about them. And sometimes, it's in our best, like it's in their best interest to be like, hey, maybe now isn't the time. Maybe you should hold off. I mean, I've been on listing appointments where I'm like, hey, time out before we keep moving forward with this. I mean, I just see you guys lighting up. Like when we're touring the home, like you're just lighting up that, you have such a beautiful home. You seem like you love it so much. All your family lives in the area, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I just don't see why it makes sense for you to go out there and move. Are you sure that you want to sell your home? You seem to really love your home, and I've talked people out of selling, right. And not necessarily talked them out of selling, but gave them the clarity that they needed to not make a mistake. But then guess what? I mean, I have one of my top refers that I've ever had in my, 20 years of doing this, refers me so many people and has over the years. Now, I mean, I've sold their kids, their grandkids, homes and properties now, and I've never done a piece of business with them, even though I went on a listing presentation with them. Yeah, right. Had that similar conversation, what I just, share with you guys here, gave them that clarity, right. That they wanted to keep their home, help them avoid a mistake. And they tell everybody that, like, I'm the best realtor on the planet, whatever, but I did what was right for them by helping them gain that clarity. So I want you to kind of think about that, right? So great step number one of a great presentation is inform and educate. So it should inform and educate them, should inform and educate you on, again, what they want, why it's important to them, as well as every step of the process. So then that way they have the best information that they need to make their best informed decision, right? And you guys have all heard the saying out there, like, oh, like people can smell commission breath, which is true. Right. So like going at this, it's like, hey, look, I don't care whether they want to buy or, we're speaking buyer brokers or so, whether they're going to buy or not, whether they're going to choose me or not. That is not my focus here. My focus is delivering them the information, answering all of their questions so they have the best information to do what they feel is truly best for them. And if I do a great job at that, right, like I'm going to convert a high level of these, but I'm not even thinking about the commission. I'm thinking about what is best for them. Okay. So that's step number one. Step number two is articulate your value. So inform and educate, articulate your value. So by articulating your value is, okay, why should they choose you? How many realtors are in your market? So in my market, I'm the most saturated real estate market per capita on the planet. I don't know exactly what realtor count is at this exact moment, but last time I checked, it was around 60,000 agents just in my market, right? So I'm always obsessed to ask myself, okay, well, why should they choose me over the other 59,999? This is the biggest financial transaction that this person is probably, this person or family and persons is making in their lifetime. Why should they choose me? And then I'm going to make sure to articulate that. So before I ask for their commitment and before I ask for a buyer broker agreement, I'm going to make sure that they know and understand everything I'm doing for them, what I'm going to do to go above and beyond, what I'm going to be doing to commit at a high level to them. Yeah, right. So then I'm going through that. What are you doing to articulate your value? Okay. Third step is to identify and overcome any objection and or concern that they have. Now, when I say overcome, right, this does not mean manipulation or deceit, right? Like I'm always going to do what's best for the customer. So it's not an objection if, if they don't want to buy real estate. It's not right? Like there's objections, and there's reality of the situation. So this is where I need to identify. Objection is another word for concern, right? So, overcome, any objection or, but first I need to identify and be able to, kind of confront those and have a conversation with those, right? And how I do that in a buyer consultation, just like I do in a listing presentation, is before okay, I'll start with this stage, which I go through their dream home form. We spend a lot of time on that, getting clear what they want, why they want it, why it's important to them, right? Before I go to the next stage, which is educating them on the overall protocol process of buying real estate, what the financial investment is, what to watch out for, what the important elements, all the contingent, all of that, and with the process of buying. But before I jump into step two, okay, we're going to take a pause. And I'm going to ask, okay, any questions, anything that I'm leaving out? And is there any questions, based on what we just got done speaking about, what we just got done talking, about? Do you have any questions, or concerns about anything that we've discussed thus far? I don't want these things to stack up. I want to be able to identify those, have that conversation, and then we go to the next stage and then the next stage, right? And then from there should lead seamlessly into the close. So this is going to be, leading into that buyer broker agreement or listing agreement, in this case, into that buyer broker agreement. So like with my buyer consultation, we start off a dream home form, right? Which is also, informing and educating, but also articulating my value. Then I get into the contract, right? That's informing and educating, but also articulating my value. Then from there, now I'm going through my commitment form, everything they can expect from me, all the services that we provide. Hey, if what you're looking for doesn't exist on the market, here's all the things I'm going to be doing to go out there and find you what you're looking for, and create that opportunity for you here, right? Like we're breaking down all the different things we're going to do for them, right? Then leading seamlessly in the close. Okay, here's all the things I'm going to be to work hard for you. In return, I ask for your commitment back to me. Now, this is not committing you and obligating you to buy real estate. So this is not saying that you go out there and buy a house and that you have to go out there and buy a house. This is just stating within X period of time, if you decide to move forward and purchase the property within this period of time, that you're choosing to commit to me and utilize me as your real estate professional. Right. So that's all I lead into. Then I start explaining, the buyer broker agreement. Here's how long it is. Here's how I'm compensated. Here's what this looks like. Boom, 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 boom. Right. Sign here and here. Okay. So step number one is down your buyer consultation. Okay. Step number two, and then we're going to get a little bit more granular, like with scripting and stuff. Right. But first I want to get into step number two. Just this is really important to understand, is that every interaction with any buyer lead, whether it's that first conversation or 50th conversation, right? And so every interaction should be eventually leading to and setting up for you setting that appointment for that buyer consultation, right? We want to be obsessed with these, right? Of this, because why does it? If we think about this, like, okay, why does an activity exist? An activity exists, so like a lead gen activity exists for me to generate a lead. Okay, a lead then in my CRM exists for me to have a conversation with that lead and to set an appointment. So every lead inside my CRM exists for one reason only, which is to set that appointment. So then, we can go out there and again, give them the information that they need to make their best informed decision, whether they want to buy or want to sell, and they can go out there and make that decision from there. So every then interaction that I have with them should be leading to that. So whether it's a lead or whether you're doing, inbound or outbound prospecting or inbound lead gen, it's like, okay, the objective of every initial conversation with any given lead or prospect is to identify their goal, identify their timeline, set the appointment if willing or able. Then if unwilling or unable, right? Because now we know goal and timeline. Now we know how the ongoing follow-up protocol to then dictate and set to maximize, the conversion of that lead based on that time frame and what their goal is. Then every follow-up call after that, right, is to build and deepen rapport. Then to confirm goal and timeline, and then set appointment if able or appropriate, right? And then just continue that process. So just making sure that we're understanding that, because then it's like when I know that, okay, hey, I know last time that we talked, you weren't quite ready yet. But in my professional experience and opinion, even though you're about 8 months out, I truly believe it is the next best step. And sooner than later is for us to set up a time to meet, so we can put a game plan together, make sure you have all the information that you need to make your best informed decision for yourself, for your family. So I'm selling the value of the appointment. Why? So, you've heard the analogy with them. What's in it for me? So why should they meet with you? Right? They have busy lives, like we're the ones chasing them. Why should they meet with you? Right? So I want to always, even if they're a year out, even if they're 8 months out, like why should they meet with me? I got to sell that value to them and why it's important for them to meet right now. I got to make them feel comfortable, all those things, that lead to, setting appointments at a very high level. Okay. So step number 3, now we're going to get, kind of more into the tactical things with, the new NAR changes and whatnot. So understand your state's buyer broker agreement, the rules and options that you have available to you. One of the tough parts about all of this is that, okay, you got the NAR guidelines, right? The NAR settlement statement. Okay. Every state has different interpretations of that, because there's a lot of vagueness in there. So every state's interpreted differently. Every state has different options, different forms, different, like just know what they are, like know it. I always look at, okay, is a real estate professional, just like any professional would, they're going to go out there and master the tools that they have available to them. Right. So when we look at our tools, okay, maybe it's, technology, social media, maybe it's our CRMs and, but what a lot of realtors don't realize is, okay, part of your tools are the contracts and forms that you utilize. So you got to master those too. Like you should know them inside and out, right? Know how to articulate this information in a very simple way, that also explains it and they can understand it and grasp it, right? So we got to know what those are. So I'll just give some examples here. Like in the state of Arizona, we have 2 different buyer broker agreements, right? So we have an exclusive and a non-exclusive. Now this is with the new NAR changes, right? And I won't get into like the technical names of them, and so forth, because it's going to be different state to state. And I know most of you are, not here in my market here in Phoenix, so what's the difference between those? Okay. The exclusive one is like, okay, hey, look, you are going to work with me. Let's just say I'm signing a 6-month buyer broker agreement. The dates can be whatever you want them to be. Yeah. Right. At least in my state. Right. In every state that I've seen, but I could be wrong on that. Right. So it can be whatever you want it to be, whether it's, 24 hours, 10 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, 365 days, right? But it's okay. Like you are exclusively working with me. And if you were to buy a piece of real estate during this time, right? Like I'm going to get my compensation from it. If you go buy one with somebody else, whatever, like I can take you to court. And, just like if I was going to go list a house, they can only list with one listing agent, right? One brokerage, one agent, right? So that's the exclusive. Well, here in the state of Arizona, they also have a non-exclusive, which is kind of like, I guess Arizona's kind of version of the Zillow touring agreement, in a way. I think that was kind of their way of doing something where it protected the consumer, right? So then from there, it's like, okay, like that, it makes me compliant with all NAR stuff and DOJ and whatever, all that, crap going on. So then that way I'm compliant, I'm on the up and up. But then from there, it's not locking the buyer in. It tells them right there that, look, they can go, if they find another home with somebody else, like they can go use somebody else. It's a non-exclusive. It just allows me to start opening up doors, showing them properties. It does talk about compensation in there, right? But then they're not locked. If they want to go look at other properties with somebody else, so, like know what those options are. Now, you may not have those options. You might have only the exclusive. That's okay. right? Because some people are like, well, I've talked to some agents, they're like, well, I don't have that in my market, Josh. So if somebody's coming like, well, hey, yeah, I want to go have you show me this property. I want to go look at homes, but I'm not willing to sign that commitment with you, right? Well, maybe you don't have kind of a, easy way, like maybe you can't use like a version of the Zillow touring agreement, or you can't use a non-exclusive buyer broker agreement that still allows you legally to go out there and show them properties, but protects them and removes that fear that they have. Okay, well, what are other ways that you can do that? I don't know. Like, okay, I'll give an example here. And now when I say I don't know, I know for my state, I don't know about your state, but let me give an example. So forever with my listing agreements. So I started looking at a long time ago, maybe, I don't know, 17, 18 years ago. This is early on in my career. I started diving deep into all the NAR surveys where they survey all the consumer. Cause I realized at that point, like I'm learning so much from other realtors and lenders and title companies and whatever, but like, I'm like, dude, I'm not like spending time, like actually learning from the consumer. So then I started really kind of tapping into like all the surveys that NAR does. And they do a great job with these, surveying buyers and sellers, general public and like getting their feedback and whatever. And I remember reading that. And it was something like for like 17 years straight at that point in time. The number one fear of a seller was listing with a real estate agent that overpromised, underdelivered, and being locked into a long-term contract with them. So then I was like, well, how can I just remove this fear? Okay, let me do a one-day listing agreement. So I came up with my one day. I still do this to this day. My one-day listing agreement. Now I do a 6-month listing agreement or 12-month listing agreement. Right. But then in the additional terms, I have special verbiage in there that if after 24 hours of their property being listed on the MLS, the seller, if they're unhappy for any reason, they may cancel without any cost, hassle, or obligation. So it's an easy exit release, right? It keeps them in control. So what's prohibiting you from building a clause in there like that? What's prohibiting you if you're getting pushback? Now I'm telling you right now, like if you nail what we talked about in step number 1, like if you nail buyer consultation, you deliver that value, like we're not having to do this, right? Very, I'm not going to say we're never going to have to do this because I'm sure that we are, but we're not seeing really resistance, at least not yet, with this. But then, okay, if we have resistance, so if somebody wants to go look at a home, but don't want to sign, a long-term agreement with you, which I don't blame them. Again, like let's put ourselves in the consumer shoes. I like, okay, they don't know you from anybody. The realtors out there, we have a very negative, we're perceived very negatively in the consumer's mind. It's like we're at the bottom of the totem pole in the likability index. Like we're below car salesmen and attorneys, and like they don't have a good perception of us. So okay, they got a negative perception of us. They don't know you from a freaking ham sandwich. So why would they feel comfortable signing a 6-month agreement saying that they have to use you and they have to pay you? What if you suck? Right? What if they had a realtor before that sucked and they're really nervous about that experience? So thinking of, okay, what are your options to go out there and eliminate those? Right? Like what's prohibiting you, from doing, okay, hey, like maybe they want to go look at this property. They don't want to sign a long-term contract. Okay, yeah, no worries. I totally get that. Totally respect that. Totally understand that. Why don't we do this? Why don't we just sign this for just today? We'll do a 24-hour buyer broker agreement. I mean, by law, I have to have you sign this, and to be able to open up any doors for any properties. But I also get and understand your concerns of not wanting to be locked into working with me. Like, look, you don't even know me yet. So why don't we do this? Why don't we just make this agreement for just today? And this is only going to apply to the property that I'm opening this door for you. So I'll go show you this property today. And if you want to move forward, this document agreement is saying that you are committing to and agreeing to utilize me as your real estate agent on this, only this property. If you don't want to move forward with it, if you want to go look at other homes, look at home as agents, this protects you and leaves that open. So I just, again, knowing what your options are. So then this leads me into step number 4 is just understanding the fears of your potential buyer clients and remove those fears, right? Like like the more that we can remove some of these hurdles and remove some of these obstacles with, the fears that they have, right? Like we all know the stat. Well, maybe we don't know, but maybe not everybody knows, but okay. Like when we look at buyers, like 88% of buyers go with the first agent they meet with and connect with in person. The more that we can remove some of these hurdles, and I'm telling you, the media is not doing any favors, right? Like I'm watching this all over in Arizona. I see it on Facebook all the time, from Arizona Central and all the local publications, they're putting out publication. Oh, real estate has changed. Now, if you want to go, like you have to sign they're like explain, like, they only give half truths. And that's how the media rolls, right? And I'm not trying to blame the media. They just don't know what they don't know. And maybe it's just, I'm sure it's just clickbait and, incite fear and piss people off. And that's how the media makes their money, right? But they're only given a half truth on there. Yeah, there's got to be a document signed. But what they're excluding from that is, okay, what the options are for the consumer that protects them. Like I haven't seen any of those that say, okay, well, yeah, you have to sign a form, but there's also an unexclusive form that protects you where you don't have to go out there and commit to just one real estate agent. They don't tell them that, yeah, look, yeah, but there's also an additional terms section on there where you can, write in a fire me guarantee. Yeah, right. Like where you can, write it like, so, and I'm because what I'm doing is like, like anytime I see something posted out there, I'm reading the consumer's comments on there. That's what I really want to pay attention to. I know so many in our industry jump into these Facebook groups and they look at all these other realtors comments. That's not what I'm paying attention to, right? I want to know what's going on in the consumer's mind. The consumers, my client, they're the ones paying me money, right? Those that are buying and selling real estate. I want to know what's going on in their head, what their fears are. This allows you to craft USPs, unique selling propositions, right? To strengthen why to go with you versus everybody else, like we talked about earlier. So know what's going on with that and then be able to, explain away these fears and concerns. So maybe the fear is, well, hey man, now that the seller doesn't have to pay a commission, they never did have to, but now that, word is, things are being purported the way that they're being purported on the media, it's all of a sudden that, oh, well, now that they don't have to, right? Again, news is full of half truths, so a lot of buyers think that, oh shit, man, I got to pay this out of pocket. I can't afford to do this. I don't want to do this. Yeah. Right. So what are you doing to explain that to them? So like when we get to that portion of the buyer broker agreement, and we're explaining how we get paid. All right. So this section of this buyer of this agreement, this is breaking down how I get compensated. Now, here's what my fee is, right? Whatever that fee is that you want to charge, right? You can't charge more, but you can charge less. Just always remember that. So here's what my fee is. Now, in the event you don't want to or you're unable to, compensate and pay me for this fee, no worries at all. Right now, first of all, let me kind of back up from that. And this is like me speaking to you guys, right? I look at this when I'm representing a buyer. Okay, I'm going to go out there and negotiate the absolute best terms for whether I'm representing the buyer, whether I'm representing the seller. Like if I'm representing a buyer, I'm going to go in and try to get them the absolute best freaking terms that I possibly can on that deal. Now, when I represent a seller, I'm trying to go out there and maximize the amount that I possibly can get them to net. So I'm going to be like a freaking pit bull and to try to go out there, negotiate and milk out every single freaking cent I possibly can for my client. And that's one of the reasons why my clients love working with me, because I know how to negotiate and I've developed that skill set and I can net them more money or find them a better deal, negotiating a better deal, because I'm treating their money, even more serious than my own money. So with this, looking at that, okay, well, are you going to, and this is going to depend market to market. If you're in a market like mine that is becoming very quickly a buyer's market, like right before our eyes, we're going from this extreme seller's market the last 12 years now into this buyer's market where shit's sitting, right? Now we won't always be able to explain it this way because we got to explain it based on what we're seeing and what the reality of the situation is. No different than in like 2021. Okay, if I had a client that wanted a home and they were a buyer, it's like, okay, like I know you want this 500,000 house that's listed at 500,000, like that's what they're looking for. But this house is probably going to sell for 600,000. It's probably going to appraise at 500,000. You're probably going to cover your own closing costs, come out of pocket and additional $100,000 in addition to your down payment. Be willing to waive the appraisal gap because that was the insanity of the market at that time. I couldn't control that, so I had to inform and educate based on the reality of that market. Well, the reality is right now with softening prices, like, okay, I can get my buyers concessions all day long, right, in this market. And I'm going to do everything I possibly can to also get it where they don't have to pay my fee. Yeah, right, to get that seller. I'm going to go in there and negotiate. I'm like, even if and the reason why I'm bringing this up, because even my buyer can afford to pay my fee. right? Like I'm going to go in there and try to negotiate to get the seller to pay that fee, so my buyer doesn't have to come out of pocket for it. Like I mean, that's like my job is to get them the best damn terms, and save them the most money possible with that. So I'm explaining this to them, and again, this is where we just got it can change like a buyer's market. We're gonna have to have different conversations than an extreme seller's market. But my market again happens to be transitioning pretty quickly into a buyer's market. So, when I get into that, okay, here's my fee. Now, in the vast majority of cases, with how the market is operating right now, we're able to negotiate and get the sellers to cover this fee, if not all of it, a good portion of it. Now, in the event the seller is unable or unwilling to pay this fee, this then would be a fee that you would then incur. However, you will know this information up front before we even move forward with this property. Then at that point, you got a decision to make, right? Like, okay, like, does that make sense, for you to go out there and do that? Or does it make sense just for us to go out and find you another property where we can get the seller to cover this fee? So you're not having to come out of pocket with it. Right. So then this is me to you guys, not talking like I would to the buyer, right? I treat this like buyer, like I know I'm getting the seller to pay my commission. It's not coming through concessions per se. But it's no different than, okay, I have a first time buyer. Maybe they absolutely need 3% of the purchase price to be applied towards closing costs. Because after down payment, they're like maybe they're FHA, they're having to pay the 3.5% down payment. After earnest money and inspections, they're just wiped out. So they have to get their closing costs covered. Okay, what happens at that event when they fall in love with a home, or they really like a home, and the seller rejects that offer, and we can't come to terms on that, and the seller's not willing to cover that? Okay, well then we just go find them something else. So I'm just having this conversation with my buyers up front, right? When it comes to that, and again, no pushback, right? Like we haven't had any yet. I'm not saying that we'll never have pushback. And look, you're going to get some people but this is no different than, even in the old way. Look, would we get some people in some situations, some cases? Sorry, that's some shirt that I couldn't see until I started piece of fuzz or something. But even with the old buyer broker agreement, I didn't get 100% of them signed, right? It would be like, it's very rare, like less than 1 out of 100 that we wouldn't get signed. But in some situations, some cases, you have some people that would sit there and say, look, nope, I'm not willing to sign that. I'm just going to go with whoever can find me the best deal. Okay, look, I get that, respect that, understand that. And I wish you the best of luck with that strategy. But unfortunately, I can only commit to those at a high level that commit back to me. So I don't think that this relationship is going to work. I wish you the best of luck. If you change your mind on how you want to do business, you're going to commit to me, then I'm willing to commit to me. You just let me know. Here's my card. So it's, like you're never going to have 100% conversions on everything that you ever do, with that. So anyway, these are the 4 overall steps to getting buyers to sign buyer broker agreements. To recap these really fast: down your buyer broker about your buyer consultation, right? Understand that every interaction with a buyer lead should be leading to setting an appointment. Understand your state's buyer broker agreement options and rules, what you can do there, what you can't do there. Step number 4 is understand the fears that your potential clients are having and remove those fears, AKA those concerns, those objections, and those pushbacks, right? Because they're probably very valid. Just ask yourself, shit, if I was them, like we have an objective view of sometimes the objections. Like when somebody comes to me, I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to commit to you. Well, to me, I'm like, well, why wouldn't you want to commit to me? Like, dude, I'd like work my ass off for my clients. I've been doing this, 20 years. I've sold 7 that. Like, I know this the back of my hand. I provide a phenomenal service. Like, I know that I'm the best person for them, or at least I truly am convinced that in my own head, right? Call me arrogant, call me cocky, call me whatever, but I truly believe that, right? So then from there, though, but they don't know me. And again, well, I don't know their backstory. Maybe they, like I'm a big real estate. So maybe in their past state, maybe or wherever, maybe they work. There's a lot of bad realtors out there. There's a lot of good ones, a lot of great ones. Like I know you guys are all great, but there's also a lot of terrible ones out there. And you know that. You and I deal with them every single day. So what if they had a bad experience? We got to understand that, right? So then from there, okay, how do we move forward, make them feel comfortable, eliminate some of that risk, right? So we can then kind of have a preview, a test drive of show them that good experience, and then go out there and once if they feel good about that, maybe we spend this weekend showing out homes and it's a non-exclusive buyer broker agreement, or we have some special verbiage in there for the buyer broker agreement. and then they, we demonstrate our value. They feel comfortable with us. And now we can, kind of move forward with the quote unquote dating phase, right. With the full agreement. Okay. So I just want to end it with this because at least at the time we're recording this, it's August 18th. My last day for booking these one-on-one Zoom coaching calls with me personally is in about two weeks, right? So it's going to be September 7th. So if you want to take advantage of this 100% free, 100% zero pressure, 100% zero strings attached, 60-minute coaching call with me personally, where we can break down your business, where your business is at, where your 12-month goals are, what your long-term goals are, what you're currently doing, what your biggest obstacles are. Then from there, I'm going to map out exactly what my recommendation is for you to get from where you're at to where you want to go in the quickest, most effective, efficient, profitable manner possible. So you're going to leave this coaching call with knowing exactly what you must do to go out there and make your goals a reality. I will make sure you know exactly precisely what to do. Now, we only have an hour together, so I can't, teach you everything of how you're going to have to execute, but at least you're going to know what you need to do. Because once you know what you need to do, then it's very easy to figure out the how, right? The biggest problem that most people have is they don't know what to focus on. They're trying to focus on 1,000 different things, right? They're all over the place. We're going to give you that clarity so you know exactly what you need to do to get from where you're at to where you want to go. And I will deliver on that, right? So if you want to take advantage of this, 100% free after September 7th, they're going to go back to just my regular consulting fee, which is $1,000 an hour for coaching. If you want one-on-one coaching time with me right now, you got this for free, but it's almost over. So if you want to take advantage of it, www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. All right, guys, keep crushing it, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.